And we are up and running after a few little glitches in trying to get this Hangout online, but we are here. If anybody's out there, you can join us now. If not, we're just going to babble, uh, hopefully not mindlessly, about A Course in Miracles. So, how are you today, Stephen?
I'm doing very well. Looking forward to us talking.
And you are there in sunny California now. I know that Phoenix and some of those areas are upwards of 120. What are you guys doing? Are you crawling around on your hands and knees there with a sun that is glaring down on you?
Well, it's right about solstice time, so yeah, it's getting pretty hot up here. But overall, there's a lot of fluctuations here on the mountain still. Sometimes we'll get surprised with these cold and windy days. So it's a nice mix.
Yeah, I can remember over across the mountains from you over in Palm Springs and Indigo, those areas, it would be, just brutally hot. And then you'd go up in the top of the mountains and you'd encounter a little bit of leftover snow. So it definitely has a lot of variance in that region.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really nice. Sometimes we have like fires out back here too, and I actually like it when it gets a little bit colder. You put on the sweatshirt and go have a fire back there and smoke some tobacco, whatever.
That's a good thing, yes. Well, this is our first episode of A Course in Miracles Hangouts, and hopefully we'll start growing this adventure and have quite a few people sharing the ride with us. And definitely we are looking for questions from people and looking for ways to further examine the Course on a lot of different levels. So for all of you who watch this episode, please do jot down things as they randomly come up during your day and shoot them to us, and we'll try to address them every Monday here on Google Hangouts. So today we are going to talk about the Song of Prayer, which is book 4 in A Course in Miracles, right at the tail end of the book. Book 5 is a dialogue about psychotherapy, which is interesting, but I think that the Song of Prayer really has kind of a celestial edge to it. So now that you've been looking at it, Stephen, what are your thoughts about the Song of Prayer?
As far as what we normally consider prayer, I think that this book, it really gets down to the simplest and clearest definition of what prayer really is. I see over and over emphasized in the Song of Prayer that basically when we're praying for things, like praying for things to happen for us or praying for things to manifest in a certain way in the physical world, basically we're praying for something time-bound and something bound to time and space, really. And so really what we're trying to cut towards here in this book is learning what is prayer really. And this book talks about that. It says that prayer is about forgiveness. Like prayer is about perceiving correctly and about seeing that you are forgiven.
Exactly. And we've got somebody joining us here, which is cool. Yeah, the thing I like about this is that right off the bat in the first section here, as you move past the introduction gives you some really positive affirmations about joining with your higher self for prayer. But what I really love is in true prayer, when he is defining true prayer, we always go to the space of, oh God, I'm out of money and I'm going to be evicted. Please, Jesus, help me. And in this particular part of the course, it says, ask rather to receive what is already given, to accept what is already there. And that really forces us to look at the realization that we were created perfect in the image and likeness of the divine. We have no needs. We only have a belief in lack or in illness or in all of these problematic conditions that arise in our life. So when we're praying, basically, from my perspective, what we're asking for is, God, help me to remove these illusions from my mind. Help me to be able to recognize the fullness and the richness of the life that you have extended to me.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Yeah, and then how do we deal with that? I think that's a question that comes out a lot in my world, where I'm seeing people around me, and you say something like that, and the question I get most often is like, well, what about when I really am running out of money? What about when things really do appear to be not given to me? And I think that's something I've learned from you and from the course as well, is like, that's when it's time to really like pause and return to what we know is true, take a step back to what we do know is true, and basically just like have that observer mind for when those perspectives come in.
Yes, exactly. And to step into that place of emptiness. You can't fill a cup if it is already full. So you've got to empty yourself out and arrive at a space where you can receive not the nickels, dimes, and dollars, but you can receive that illumination that allows you to recognize the resources that are right at your fingertips all along. And I'll mention real fast here, Michelle, your microphone is muted, so if you want to speak to us, just go ahead and unmute yourself and jump in.
Thanks. I'm enjoying this so far.
Great. So yeah, working on that whole idea of really enriching our lives through the process of prayer, I think is the core of what everybody comes to the course for, because we do tend to be embroiled in all sorts of adventures and misadventures in this world. So when we initially take that first journey toward the course, we recognize that we are wounded, or that we are incomplete somehow, or we are under duress. And I would say 9 times out of 10, that's what is the motivating factor. It's that running away from things that we have a belief in, that are fearful and that are antagonistic and that are scary. And so it really is important that we learn how to pray appropriately. And Jesus had said that in the New Testament. He admonished us to pray rightly, rather than just mindlessly spewing out things to God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I noticed that there's a part too in the Bible of Jesus saying, like, you don't pray like the Pharisees who go out and like pray in front of people just for show, and like really think about it. And when we're praying for things, I think we also need to question, like, if we are praying for things for show, like praying for things that we can have that would somehow like idolize our ego, like idolize the temporal, idolize the human life. And not that those things are wrong to enjoy, of course, like enjoy yourself, enjoy being here, but Course says, there's one line that says in the book that says, there's only one meaningful thing to actually pray for, and that's for forgiveness. And that,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think the forgiveness can come off sounding a little bit weird in this context, because what we're really praying for is the awareness of truth. And, you know, forgiveness is part of that journey to truth. We have to be willing to forgive the entire world that we have constructed. But the real thing that always comes across to me in prayer as being, you know, a needful thing is to pray that I might see the truth as it exactly is. And it says in the second verse here, therefore it is not the form of the question that matters, nor how it is asked. The form of the answer, if given by God, will suit your needs as you see it. And this is merely an echo of the reply of his voice. The real sound is always a song of thanksgiving and love. So when we are in that place where we are able to accept the love that God is extending to us, it is that experience of being lifted up and set free from these fearful things that we have miscreated that are chasing us across, you know, hill and dale.
I think there's a great line here that stuck out to me as you were reading that. So it says, the secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need. To ask for the specific is much the same as to look on sin and then forgive it. Also, in the same way, in prayer, you overlook your specific needs as you see them and let them go into God's hands. There they become your gifts to Him, for they tell Him that you would have no gods before Him, no love but His. What could His answer be but your remembrance of Him? Can this be traded for a bit of trifling advice about a problem of an instant's duration? God answers only for eternity, but still all little answers are contained in this.
Yeah, basically, once again, what we're going back to over and over again is that recognition that God is an ever-present process in our lives, that we cannot be separate from God because God is our life. And as you were starting to talk about a little bit earlier about praying in public and doing this big, you know, breast beating, look at me, and the guy who really loves God. In this next section it says, the secret of true prayer is to forget the things that you think you need. So the idea of a secret here comes across very strong in that sentence also. And, you know, the quote that you were talking about from the Bible, it goes on to say, you know, go into a closet, close the door, find that stillness, and that's when the answer will become very, very clear for us. So anyway, it is what it is, and it is an ongoing journey, but really there is only one thing that we need to pray for, and that is, as Jesus said, Lord, reveal thyself to me. Because if you have that recognition of the presence of God, then everything else is yours, because your truth, your fullness, the person that you actually are, is something that you can reside in and know that all of your needs are met.
Perfect. I'm curious if and Michelle, I'm really grateful that you're joining us here, and I was just curious if you like had any feedback. You told me that you were studying the course when we talked and made my website for me. So curious if you were, you know, like if you had any feedback with like how your process is going with that.
Well, there we go. Michelle, are you with us?
Maybe there was a freezing that happened.
Yeah, I think so. I think that we lost Michelle temporarily there. Hopefully she'll reboot and come back on. But anyway, yeah, the whole journey itself is a journey of self-discovery. And once we arrive at that place where we've discovered ourselves, we recognize that fullness, that truth, that there is nothing here but God. And a lot of different disciplines have that, in the mystical experience, have that theme going on, that you don't have to say God is this or God is that. All you have to do is recognize God is, and there is nothing else beyond God. And that's a step in the right direction to illumination.
Yeah, I'm even thinking about that Alan Watts seminar that he gave on talking about like a lot of Indian traditions that say like the words neti neti, which is like not this, not that, and that whole theme that Ramana Maharshi advocated as well is like questioning who am I. That original question is the who am I, and the method that they use for that for the mind is just to say whenever you could like grasp it, whenever you could label what am I or who am I, just say not this or not that. You don't let your mind attach to form as your identity. And so I think that that's an interesting thing, like that really correlates with the Course. Do you have anything to add to that?
Oh yeah, I think that Alan Watts was brilliant, and he was an amazing not only student of Buddhism, but he was very good at clarifying what Buddhism was. He was literally the guy who brought Buddhism to the Western world. And that whole idea of attaching yourself to any kind of an idea, even if it is a somewhat spatial idea, like we're the cosmos filled with stars dancing through the skies, even that is trying to put a circle around the idea, the concept of God. And because we are the God's reflection, we have to really get rid of all those limited ideas about self and be comfortable with the idea of setting in that space of nothingness, because it is within that nothingness that everything comes forth.
And on that note, Michelle, looks like you returned back. Did it freeze up for you?
Yeah, it got all frozen on me.
Cool. Did you want to it was like in regards to you said you were studying the Course, right? When you were helping me make my website, is any of this going along with your own process?
So I've been studying the Course for maybe about 8 years or so, and I really love it, and it's always it's a go-to fundamental place, for understanding and for, getting back into sort of that right place. And, it's interesting as we went along when you talked about prayer and, God's answer really is the whole answer. I'm not one to pray for a thing very often, but I had one experience where it could have been a really, really fearful situation. In fact, it was. Real space, and I someone else, and it was prayed out of love. And that
we lost Michelle again, and there she's back and forth. But so basically, Michelle, what I'm hearing you say is that even though you weren't praying for specific things, you had a specific intention, and that intention had been addressed in that process of just working on praying to God as reveal thyself to me, if that makes sense.
so but see that like
The connection is a little spotty for me on this end.
Yeah, I think this entire Hangout is experiencing solar flares or something, but it's that first launch, and we are learning what it is we need to refine in order to make this work better. So it is a learning and growing process, and
there into like a real.
You're coming through clearly, Chris, but for some reason, I think on Michelle's end, I wasn't able to hear her very well.
Right, she was breaking up real bad, and but actually, for our first discussion here, I think we've at least opened the door by looking at what prayer is, and encourage everybody to take a look at Book 4, The Song of Prayer, and to contemplate, some of the thoughts, some of the vision that is shared in that particular part of A Course in Miracles. And I'm sure we're going to be coming back to this theme over the next few weeks until we completely exhaust whatever we can derive out of it. So maybe as just the last little few minutes here, Stephen, could you give us a sense of what it was that brought you to A Course in Miracles?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like my first response, sort of like the imp in me, wanted to jump up and say, yeah, an extreme amount of pain.
Yeah, well, a lot of us go down that road.
Just going like, yeah, an unbelievable amount of pain that ultimately is in the works for healing. Like you told me about A Course in Miracles when we first met, which was about, 5 years ago, like online? Something around
5
there.
or 6, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we met when you introduced astrology to me as well at that time, or you helped welcome me into that realm. And I think what really like pushed me over the edge of the Course is that there was another person, his name is Stephen Teagarden, who showed me the Course. He was a chiropractor, and then he quit being a chiropractor to develop his emergence care modality, which he performed on me and on a couple other people, and it was really life-altering. It was like, whoa, like just like this experience of like my ego mind completely vanquishing from my awareness and just going like, oh my gosh, there's all of this. And and then just like different experiences like that continued along, and eventually I got to a place where I was doing a lot of healing work with my family members, and eventually, I went to you again, and you reminded me of the Course. You said, this is like basically the best foundation for truth that I have. And I just said like, all right, enough's enough. I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to unify with God. Like, I'm ready to like really start to see the truth, because I get this nagging sense like I'm onto something really big, but I don't have the full picture. And so that's when I really started delving in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is like I had said earlier in our discussion. Most of us come to the Course in a state of duress, and the beauty of it is that if we are tenacious, if we don't just run away and hide when the truth starts to reveal itself, it is immediately a source of, I guess you could say, a balm with our wounds. But we have to get to that point where we're ready to give up being in pain. And that probably is the biggest single obstacle to getting into A Course in Miracles, is that for some weird reason we do love our pain and we will cling to it.
Yeah, that's the interesting part, is that I find the deeper I go into the Course now, the more of it just simply suggests that it's my perception that dictates whether or not my brother suffers, that whether or not I suffer, because really it's, in a sense, I want to say it's my accountability, or it's my, I don't know if I'm using the right word for this, or my responsibility, my accountability for my own mind, my own sanity, basically. And if I'm choosing to stray from that, I mean, who could that be but me that's choosing that? That's what I'm learning.
That's exactly the way it works.
So,
Well,
did you want to mention how you came to the Course by chance, just before we wrap up?
well, actually, I've also been on a journey looking to understand what the hell's going on. And I don't know, from the time I was quite young, I had had a lot of experience. I remember when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old, I would hear people talk about Christian Science, and they'd laugh about it and have derogatory remarks about it. And I always responded to that internally. I didn't say anything, but I also said, that inner voice within me said, no, that's wrong. Christian Science has something. There's something there. So in my early 20s, I started looking at metaphysics, and I had studied a little bit of Mary Baker Eddy, and then I studied some of the other people in that community, especially Joel Goldsmith. He was a very brilliant person who came through with a lot of information. And then, you know, there's just a whole multitude. It started in the 1840s and came through until the 1950s, where there was this flood of enlightened thinking. And so I was moving along in that trajectory, and then I came across a book by Alan Cohen. And that particular timeline, 1996, was when I was really trying to understand what the deeper meaning to everything was, because by then I had allowed myself to, to go across a lot of the boundaries of normal thought. And some days I would get up and wonder, am I sane? Is this real? And so it was an ongoing process like that. But Alan Cohen's work was really the inspiration for me to pick up A Course in Miracles. And I've been with the Course now for 20 years. And it is just a constant unfolding. It's like every time you get to a place where you think you really understand it, a whole new series of vistas will open up. And it's like, oh my God, I had no idea that you could go to this next level. And so if you really want to go down the rabbit hole with Alice, and if you're willing to give allowance to the idea that Alice is really God, then that I would suggest A Course in Miracles, because it will take you to places that you can't even imagine at this current space and time that you're inhabiting.
Absolutely. It is remarkable, because it's like I've been on this basically spiritual journey, whatever that is. I don't have any clue of what that is, really. I just know that it's more about wanting the truth, wanting to know what's really going on, as you said. I've been having this go on in a really accelerated way for the last 5 or 6 years, and when I found A Course in Miracles, I was like, oh gosh, this is it. This is what I was looking for. This is going to be like the book that is going to be basically like the last book I need. Like it's just going to take me all the way home ultimately. And so I'm just writing it. I'm just going to see where it goes.
Well, and that's the beauty of A Course in Miracles. Nothing in the Course is unique or new. You can find things in Vedic text, in ancient Zoroastrianism, in ancient Judaism, Sufism, mystical Christianity. Native Americans are very much aware of a lot of the ideas that are shared with us. All the tribal peoples were plugged into these concepts. But the Course in Miracles is unique in that it's the first time all of this information has been organized and clarified and presented to us in a way that is palpable. It's like we are babies, and so we have to eat, at our own pace. We have to consume at our own pace. And the Course is very patient with us, because in, well over 360 pages, you get the same theme, the same ideas presented from a multitude of different angles. And it helps you to actually step into a space where you can comprehend these simple truths that we have such a huge amount of resistance to.
I find that over and over, and I have to laugh at myself and call myself out and say, this is not anything new. This is nothing that I don't already know. I just look at it and I go, this is just me resisting it. This is just another way that I've built up a barrier to love, right? I seek out barriers to love, not love itself. And I'm just feel called over and over again and be like, there's a line in the Course about, all right, choose again, choose. I want you to choose again and see clearly. So yeah, it's just fascinating to realize how much self-inflicted suffering that's just really unnecessary.
Yeah, it is perfect in that it reminds us over and over again that God does not condemn us. We are the ones who condemn ourselves and those around us. And as soon as we stop the judgment and the condemnation, then the love will enter into that space that you're occupying. The vessel has to be emptied out. All of your bitterness, all of your darkness has to be emptied out of the vessel of your consciousness in order for love to actually enter into the picture and to do what it needs to do. And that really is what A Course in Miracles is. It's a course in discovering the presence of love. You're like a fish floating around in the ocean going, where's water? I need water. How can I find water? And you just have to stop flipping and flopping and doing all the silly things that we're all inclined to do. And then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, I'm surrounded by love. It was always there. What a silly, silly person I've been.
Basically just inhale. That's right.
Exactly. Well, Stephen, next Monday we will get this dog and pony show on the road and hopefully be at the next level. Next Monday, we're going to have to actually postpone because I'm going to be out of town. We're going to visit the Redwoods. Oh, nice. Florian and I. So, and the kids as well. So next Monday is going to have to be without it, but we'll resume the Monday after that. Okie dokie. That gives us 2 weeks to meditate on how to get rid of the glitches. Sounds good. And I just want to put out there that if anyone has feedback for us, questions, comments of any kind, feel free to just leave it there in the comment box or on the page. Well, Stephen, I will see you in 2 weeks and enjoy those redwoods. I have spent many, many hours stumbling around in the forest north of San Francisco.
Perfect. We will. This will be my first time checking it out, so looking forward to it.
You'll love it.